I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and welcome back to Genesis Does. At first, Pepenga Pengo confused me because I thought, no, this couldn't be the same game that I used to play on Atari 2600 and 5200, the penguin who kicks blocks of ice around to destroy enemies. And, in fact, it is the same game. This is the same Pengo from over 30 years ago. It originally came out back in 1982 in arcades and got home console ports shortly after that. But what's funny is if you look on the Wikipedia page for Pengo, at least as of the time I'm making this video, there is no entry for it under Sega Genesis. It only says 2600, 5200, Atari 8-bit, and Sega Game Gear, but not Sega Genesis. So I had to do a little more digging and figure out exactly where Pepenga Pengo came from when I decided to play this game for Genesis Does. And it turns out to be a Japanese exclusive for the Mega Drive that never got a release outside of Japan, which may be why the English language Wikipedia doesn't know anything about it. But Hardcore Gaming 101 does, and they refer to it as a Bomberman Rip-Off, and a pretty blatant one at that. Well, now I feel like that's a fact that can be debated. Calling Pengo a Bomberman Rip-Off? I mean, it plays similarly to Bomberman, but if you're looking at the chronology of things, Pengo predates Bomberman. The first Bomberman game for Nintendo was December 20th, 1985. As noted, Pengo is from September of 1982. So wouldn't that make Bomberman a Pengo ripoff instead of the other way around? Maybe even calling either of them ripoffs is the wrong way to phrase the whole thing. Because look, Bomberman is a game where you're very specifically trying to achieve the goal of blowing up the enemies by either putting a bomb directly in their path or chaining together bombs to create bigger explosions and take out multiple enemies at the same time. And I think Pengo, with its block kicking mechanism, has a similarity to that, especially since you can create new ice blocks just like you can create bombs. But the ice blocks don't explode. You can kick one block into another and create a chain reaction where the other block slides into an enemy, but I don't know that I would call that the same as chaining bombs together. Also, you're not breaking bombs in Bomberman. You actually have to break ice in Pengo to get to certain areas or to access enemies that you want to destroy. Like if there's a little igloo in your way, you have to kick an ice block into it to get rid of it so you can move to that section. I think there's a fair bit of difference between them. The only way I would say they're the same would be the layout of the screens is tile-based and the enemies can be caught between the tiles. It does have that in common. Now, as far as this version of Pengo goes, I find that it's actually a little more difficult than I remember it being on Atari 2600 and 5200. I think it's because I'm playing the story mode. Maybe if I was playing the regular mode, it would be different. But the time limit definitely forces me to take out these enemies a lot faster. And if there was a time limit in the original Pengo, I don't remember it as such. Therefore, I'm convinced it's entirely a product of the story mode of Pepenga Pengo. But the story really isn't that important. To make it a long story short, there are these things called snowbees that are very against the penguins and their desire to live in a chill environment, and they're always causing trouble. There was one encased in ice, but a magical crystal that was keeping the temperature cold for the penguins was smashed by a passing meteorite, causing temperatures to rise and freeing the snowbee from its prison, at which point Pengo has to go after it and capture it again to save their chill environments. Did you really need to know that to play this game? No. All you need to know is you make ice, you kick ice, you hit enemies with said ice, and once you clear all the enemies from a stage, you progress to the next stage. Along the way, there are some items that you can pick up. I suppose that's the one thing that makes it really comparable to Bomberman, because you could pick up items in that game as well, and they would give you extra abilities like the ability to lay down more bombs or to generate your bombs faster or move faster or whatever the power-up would be that it would happen to do. In this case, the only one that I'm really sure of is that picking up the little alarm clock icon seems to freeze the time countdown for a brief period of time. In a way, it's like adding time to the clock, but you don't add time, you just stop the time moving for a little bit, and then it starts counting down again. It would be better if you could pick up multiple clocks and they would just add more time. Then you would really know how much time you had left to clear a level. But you get better at it as time goes by. No pun intended there. The popsicles, I'm not really sure what they do for you. They could just be extra points, or maybe they help you generate more ice faster because they cause your breath to freeze. It doesn't really matter. In fact, getting a game over and running out of lives doesn't really matter because you can just start right back at the level you were in and continue progressing through Pengo without your path being impeded too much. A lot of P's in this episode. Pepenga Pengo. Power! Sorry, Scrappy Doo just popped into my head there. So, Pengo, should you get this game? Should you play this game? I would say absolutely. I think if you were playing it on Atari, you would still say the same thing, because Pengo has always been a simple and fun game that very easy to learn, very difficult to master. It's a game that sucks you into its goals and gives you an incentive to keep trying to get better each time you play it, which is, to me, the best kind of video game. It's not a game that's going to require you to level up or learn complex lore. It's just a pick up and play type of game. Honestly, a game like Bomberman or Pengo could probably be a mobile game on cell phones these days, but I still think it benefits from the experience of being played on a Sega Genesis with a D-pad. I think that really adds to it and makes it even more fun, but it's also a simple enough game that if you have an Atari joystick and one fire button, you can still do perfectly well playing it that way. What's it going to cost you if you want a physical copy of Pepenga Pengo? Currently on eBay, we have one copy complete in box. I think it's probably new and sealed because it's going for $890. That seems pretty excessive. But then again, a loose copy seems to be $285. So perhaps there is something rare about Pepenga Pengo that also makes for the fact that it's not well known on Wikipedia as a Sega Genesis game. What year was this version released? 1995. That doesn't seem terribly late for a Sega Genesis Mega Drive game. There have been some that are even later than that, and that don't fetch nearly the prices this one seems to get. So what is the reason? Did Sega just not produce that many copies? Apparently, they also made it available on the Japanese Wii Virtual Console, which nobody has access to anymore because the Wii, you can't add any more points to the Wii Shop channel, so even if you could go to the Wii Shop, there's no way to buy anything because you can't add credit. That's been disabled. So it appears that Hardcore Gaming 101 says it's really hard to justify the high price tag, so those prices on eBay are accurate, whether I like it or not. It seems weird that this game would actually go for more than Panorama Cotton does. I didn't expect that when I started recording this video, but it is what it is. It just doesn't make sense that an arcade game owned by Sega, that's their own intellectual property, would be something they would short print. And they invested this much effort into making a Sega Genesis version of it, and then didn't bother to release it outside of Japan, even though the gameplay is simple and addictive enough that it would resonate in all regions without even having to worry about much translation. And there isn't any translation to do, because it says go and round clear and press start and time. All of this stuff is in English, so why, Sega? Why did you short print this? Why didn't you export it to other territories? This particular episode of Genesis Does leaves us with more questions than answers. But here's one I can answer for you. Don't pay $200 to $800 for Pepenga Pengo. No. I mean, you could probably pick up a used Japanese Wii that would have a copy of it on there for less than that, but I wouldn't pay $800 for it. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again next week with another episode of Genesis Does. Like, share, subscribe, do all the things. It helps the channel out. Again, thanks for watching. I appreciate you all. See you soon.